In the 12 months since I've been embracing the carnivore diet, I have been warned numerous times about awful things that would happen to me if I remained on this diet. These warnings came from legitimate people, from doctors, from medical researchers. They came from the media. They came from television reports, magazine articles, and they came from well-meaning family and friends. So I thought I would take a moment today and reflect back on my 12 months on carnivore. I've been a full year on carnivore now, eating really nothing but meat and eggs and salt and butter. So today in this video, I wanted to go through some of the warnings that I have received since I started carnivore about some of the terrible things that would happen to me if I continued this way of eating. The first warning always had to do with fibre. You're not going to get enough fibre because there's no real fibre in meat or eggs, and that's going to cause gut issues, and it's going to cause digestive issues, and you could finish up with things like irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's disease or microbiome issues. You're going to have chronic constipation or diarrhea. Things are just going to go wrong with your digestive system. I even got told on more than one occasions that the meat would actually rot in my colon and cause all sorts of problems. So if that warning was true, you might expect that after a whole year of eating nothing but meat and eggs, salt and butter, as I said, that I would have chronic gut issues, chronic digestive issues. But I wanted to tell you, it just never happened. In fact, the carnivore community now numbers several million people worldwide. And it's interesting that when you listen to the carnivores themselves, the people who are actually eating the meat, I only ever hear them say that IBS and Crohn's disease, digestive issues, gut issues were reversed and got better on the carnivore diet. I can honestly say that I've never heard a single person on the carnivore diet say, I started carnivore and I got all these gut issues. It just doesn't happen. It's the exact opposite. So there's something wrong there, because if the warnings were true, you would expect carnivores everywhere to be having bowel problems and digestion problems. But it just doesn't happen. The second warning I received was that on carnivore, you're going to be lacking a whole lot of vitamins and nutrients that your body needs, and you're just not going to get them unless you're eating plenty of fruit and green veggies. So let's use a bit of common sense here. If that is true, and I have eaten nothing but carnivore for 12 months, you would expect me to be seriously lacking in many vital nutrients and vitamins. Would it be any surprise for me to tell you that I'm not? In the whole of my 12 months on carnivore, I've had full blood panels done every 3 months and had constant medical checkups, mainly out of concern, not so much for myself, but my family and friends who think I'm in grave danger. I would tell you that all of my electrolytes, all of my vitamin levels have actually improved on carnivore diet. I have not got scurvy. I have not got sick. I've never once been ill in 12 months, and all my blood work has improved. So it just doesn't make sense that I'm lacking vitamins or nutrients. Meat is the most nutrient-dense food on the planet, and it has every nutrient that we need. I'm not lacking anything. I'm in better health today than I've ever been in my life. Okay, number 3, and this is that carnivore will cause obesity. This almost makes me laugh, because the experience of every carnivore I know is the exact opposite. You see, people say, oh, carnivores don't count calories, which we don't, and they don't measure portion sizes, which we don't. In fact, we have as much as we want. We eat until we are comfortably full. We are never hungry. But people tell us if you don't count calories and you don't measure your portion sizes, that you're going to put on stacks of weight and you'll just get more and more obese. So you would expect me, after a year on carnivore, of eating as much meat as I want to and eating till I'm comfortably full so that I'm never hungry, that I would have put on a stack of weight. Do I need to tell you that I've lost 25 kilos on the carnivore diet? Or in pounds, that's 55 pounds. That's not exactly putting on weight, is it? That's the opposite. It just doesn't make sense, because I've never heard any carnivore say that I started carnivore, but I had to stop because I was putting on so much weight. It just doesn't happen. It doesn't make sense. So I'm not going to waste any more time on this warning. Warning number 4 would be warnings that come under the heading of heart issues and heart disease. This is a serious one, because in my family there's a strong history of heart disease, and I have a high CAC score that you've heard me talk about in previous videos. So if carnivore is bad for your heart, I really want to know. The line that we're told here goes something like this, that if you eat all of that meat, it's going to raise your cholesterol, particularly your LDL, and your LDL levels going to dramatically increase your risk of having a heart attack. Therefore, carnivore is bad for your heart and is going to increase the risk of heart attack, and the logic would say, therefore, the risk of numbers of heart attack in the carnivore community. So did my risk of a heart attack increase? 3 times since starting carnivore, I've been to see a cardiologist, and the cardiologist has done fairly extensive testing on my heart. At the end of those tests, he announced to me that I have actually reduced my risk of a heart attack. And then he said to me, "What have you been doing?" And I said, "The carnivore diet." And he said, "Well, whatever you're doing is working." And I have never once heard a person say, "I started carnivore and I got a heart attack." I've never heard that story. A 5th warning that I have received repeatedly throughout the last year is that if I go on carnivore, it will actually increase my risk of getting diabetes. Now, I don't know how they came up with this theory, but I'd have to tell you, it's the opposite of my experience. When I started carnivore, I was on the verge of being declared diabetic. I was right on the tipping point. And yet there was doctors on YouTube and medical researchers on YouTube saying that if I eat just a little bit of meat, it's going to dramatically increase my risk of getting diabetes. So you would think logically, if a little bit of meat increases my risk of diabetes, then what is a diet that is almost exclusively meat going to do? You would expect diabetes to be skyrocketing in the carnivore community. But I would have to tell you that I have heard personally first-hand reports from literally hundreds of carnivores to say that their type 2 diabetes was totally reversed on the carnivore diet. I've never heard a single person say that I went on carnivore and I got diabetes. Doesn't make sense, does it? Warning number 6 was that meat causes inflammation. And we know that inflammation is at the root of just so many diseases, particularly all the metabolic diseases. And they're telling us that if we eat meat, we're going to increase our risk and our likelihood of having inflammation in our bodies. When I started Carnivore 12 months ago, my inflammation levels were really high. I had inflammation right through my body. My CRP, which is one of the primary markers that they use to measure inflammation in your body, was at 14. It was sky high. After 1 year on Carnivore, eating pretty much nothing but meat, you would expect my inflammation levels to have gone even higher than what they were before. They didn't. In fact, my inflammation levels dropped from 14 right down to 3. They tell us that the ideal level is 2. So I've dropped from 14 almost back to the ideal level. Funny that, isn't it? Just by eating meat that they warned me would cause inflammation. Just doesn't make sense, does it? There's one more biggie that I was warned about repeatedly over the last 12 months, and that is that eating red meat will increase my risk of cancer. Some go even further and say eating red meat causes cancer. So you would expect that if somebody only ate red meat for a whole year and ate nothing else, that they would be on the verge of cancer, wouldn't you? You would expect that in the carnivore community, again, millions of people, that cancer would be rampant in the carnivore community. That's the only logical conclusion you could come to with that line of thinking. Do you know how many carnivores I've heard say, I started carnivore, but I got cancer and I had to stop and change my diet? Not a single one. Not a single one out of the millions. Nowhere has this happened. You see, you think these people that are making all these wild accusations and warnings to the carnivore community would at least look at the carnivore community themselves. They're very quick to remind us that no tests have been done. But what about a test that numbers millions of participants over a period of 12 months, up to 8 or 9 years that people have been on carnivore, some even longer than that? You would think that that would be a pretty convincing group of people to talk to get your information from, to get some solid data from. But these people don't talk to the carnivore community. They get their information somewhere else. And friends, the warnings are just not true. I just look at two things really when I'm assessing all of these warnings that I'm given. The first is plain common sense. Does it make sense? Is it my own experience after a whole year on carnivore? And these things are not my experience. In fact, the exact opposite, the polar opposite, is my experience. And are these warnings being seen in plague proportions in the carnivore community? They are not. Again, it's just the opposite. In fact, people on the carnivore diet are improving their health and their lifestyle, their longevity. They are losing weight. They are having all sorts of health issues reversed. They've got mental clarity. Many of them are getting off medications for mental illness. Many of them are finding mental clarity, feeling better, stronger, fitter than they've ever done in their life before. And this is certainly my experience. Look, friends, just use a bit of common sense when you hear these warnings. Talk to carnivores themselves and say, what's your story? And there's plenty of stories out there because carnivores love to tell their stories. They love to show their blood work. I will show you my blood work done every 3 months for 12 months. And everything that I'm saying is backed up in black and white on my blood tests and on my medical results. Don't be frightened by the people that are bringing these fake warnings. Just try it and see for yourself if any of these terrible things happen. I'm sure that you'll find that your experience is the exact opposite, like mine and countless other people on this diet. If you wanted to catch up with my 12-month medical report on the carnivore diet, I will leave a link to it above and you can catch it there. Please leave a comment and tell me your experience. I would love to hear from you. I do read every comment and I answer every comment. And also join our Facebook group, the Carnivore Pensioner, and you might like to consider subscribing to our channel. But thanks for watching today. I will see you on the next video, and until then, keep telling your story. Bye for now.